Hello and welcome to the Foundry Roundtable. Tonight we'll be doing a special live stream Foundry mission build with Greendragoon, my co-host, and I, of course, am Bajorans 1701. Our usual co-host, Markhawkman, is off with work-related duties, so it'll be the two of us tonight, and we've got 2/3 of the cast of the Author's Outpost with us tonight. So please welcome Castmodean and Kendra.
Hey!
I didn't do it.
You always say that, but I'm sure you did. Doom works. We expect Doom from you. But we're going to make something that's not about Doom and Gloom. Well, mostly.
If it has to do with the Iconians, it totally is.
But see, I've got something that I think is going to be right up Mr. Dragoon's alley here. So this mission build is sort of my way to, and here I'm going to use the word again, Dragoon, Mr. Greendragoon here, into making a mission for the Iconian War anthology. But I've got a idea I think he'll like. It's a diplomatic mission of sorts. That'll take place in the midst of the war, because when you're in a war, what do you need? You need allies, right?
Okay.
Among other things.
Yeah. So here's my thought. How about you have the player go on an adventure to recruit the the Orion Syndicate to be more reliably on your side.
Like I say, should they already be part of the KDF?
Nominally, but I don't think they really are that much. I think they would work at cross purposes a lot. And besides, I think this should be a Fed mission.
Okay.
And it's much better than the idea of going on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
We all know how that turns out. Of course, we could have this mission turn out the same way if you wanted.
Well destroying a planet could be interesting.
The Iconian War did.
Mm-hmm. So my thought of how to begin the mission is, so say you need to find, you're given this mission to go get the resources and the intelligence capabilities of the Orion Syndicate a little bit more into the fold. And you need to talk to a high-ranking syndicate operative, one of their big bosses. Maybe not the boss herself, but one of the big bosses. So, how do you find this person? Well, first step ought to be go to a prison and talk to a prisoner from the Orion Syndicate, right?
You could always do it like you're intentionally getting captured and going undercover.
Ooh, that could be fun.
Be a good excuse to use the Facility 4028 map.
Mm-hmm. There just aren't enough good uses of that map. It's a fantastic map. Although it can be slightly difficult to build on sometimes.
We don't need a lot of it.
No, just kind of the opening area by the transporter pad. Because there's that first row of cells.
And I just realized we've got the holographic guards now in the Foundry.
We do. What we don't have is the force field bridges. That's okay. We can do without those.
We'll work around that.
we have horizontal force fields that can work.
Or glass floors.
I'm actually using the Facility 4028 map in my latest mission, but I'm using it as not as a prison, but as I'm calling it a security substation. I figure that, for all the areas where you don't have a starbase, you need somebody around to do like traffic control and law enforcement and things like that. So you'd have these little security stations scattered around the Federation.
Well, also consider that I think, if I remember my memory alpha correctly, your standard subspace signal only has a range of about 20 light years before it starts degrading. So they would also have communications
Relays.
centers set up
Yeah.
all over the place.
Good point.
So it could be dual purpose.
Johnny Snowball says he used 4028 as a time machine in his mission saving Gideon. That's inventive. I got to give him that.
Well, it does have that cool computer core.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great maps are done just by, like, redressing existing locations.
Mm-hmm. One of the complaints I got on a previous mission where I used Facility 4028 is that there are many signs that say Facility 4028 on it, and the guy said, if you're going to use it, cover it up.
My answer to that is, you remember that time when we went to that place that's not K7? And I
You
think
mean
the
Charon?
Romulan arc?
Yeah, I think it was the Charon system.
And everything still says K7 though.
Yup.
Luckily, there was only, like, I think 2 places where I actually need to cover it up. Because most of the signs say, you know, something A block, or, you know, they say something prison related rather than the name of the prison. But there's 2 or 3 that do say Facility 4028.
So you just have a lot of lounge signs around.
That, or you, let's see, what is the console name? I actually got it open here. I was doing a little work for once. Console Wall 04, which is the nifty thing that's sort of like a kind of an angled wall console that's purplish. I just stick that up over the top of them. There's Dragoon falling in the hole.
Yeah, I had to
Later
try
go
it.
down the hole.
Now, if you're going to have people walking over the some kind of bridge there, if you put in your own asset as a bridge, one thing you're going to want to do is put some invisible walls at the side, because people are going to fall. They're
But we
going
can
to jump.
we can kill them now.
Oh, that's also correct.
By putting spiders down there?
Does anybody
No,
know how
not even
tall
spiders.
the
Space volume.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say.
SFC 100 reminds us that we can actually put the Facility 4028, you can actually use the Ayala system where it is as a valid starting point now. That's an actual door now,
nice?
which is very nice.
I should point out that we don't expect to finish this up entirely tonight. We'll probably
No.
continue this into a second episode.
First time we did this, it went over 2 episodes.
So has anybody actually come up with a mapping for this map as far as item placement goes?
Somebody did a while back.
Well, one of you
I
guys
can't
go
remember
look it
if-
up.
I can't remember if they had placed it on the forums or not, or anywhere that, or if they had recorded it anywhere, or
Try
I knew
the,
people had figured out, you know, what are the sort of negative number values to get objects placed in the other areas of the map.
Sorry, I'm just going through and trying to suss out the heights in Facility 4028. I'm only going to keep it onto this one level. I'm
Mhm.
not going to try for any of the other levels, but the fun fact about this map is it's symmetrical, which I think is a sign of the part of the original intent, which was to turn this into a PvP map.
Be kind of a cool PvP map.
That's really close.
using the patented trial and error method, which most Foundry authors ought to be familiar with.
At least the project's small right now and loads pretty quickly.
I'll tell you one thing, though. As you load in, if you look down, we were just talking about the transporter pads, which won the Foundry asset polls, number one sort of single asset people would like to have. This map has a nice little transporter pad. So Taco, take note. This one you could grab.
Actually,
What, the
I think
transport pad?
part of that is, yeah, the
In that little transporter
pad
room
itself
asset we
is
already
basically
have.
just without the Fetty ship walls.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 0.9 seems really close. I think it might be like negative 0.91 or 0.92. Something I could use some inspiration on is these doorways. Are going to need something to block them.
Earth space dock doors.
Ooh, I haven't tried
Those
yet.
open, though, don't they?
Well, there's the turbo lift. There's a closed variant for the Earth space dock turbo lifts.
Ah.
Oh, Taco put in a clocked version of the Club 47 doors. I love you, Taco.
Yeah, he put in locked and unlocked versions of all the doors on the map.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he thinks like we do, which is awesome.
Well, he builds these things, so he goes, okay, how would I do it? Oh, I don't want somebody to go there.
All right,
There
so
they are.
yeah. Yeah, these could work.
They actually work quite nicely. I'm using one in one of the maps I'm working on right now.
I mean, the downside is you just have to position it enough so that you can't tell that you can see up and over the door, but
Well, the
those
fun thing
hallways
is,
should be narrow enough.
Yeah, the doorways are very narrow on Facility 4028.
And I
plus-
don't think it's quite centered, just so you know. The pin.
okay.
It's amazing how often they aren't. The other nice thing about Facility 4028 is that it fits the. You know how we have the asset, which is just the regular Starfleet doors that open. There's just the doors. It fits those perfectly as well.
And best of all, you don't have to worry about pathing issues because the doors are already there.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have to spawn them or anything like that.
Oh, that's what you get for putting plus when you should have put minus. But it also shows I need to move it forward somewhat. Trial and error. If you're a Foundry author, get used to it. While I'm thinking about it, let's see what we got for force fields. So what we could do is we got this really narrow yellow one that we could stack together to form a bridge.
Well, that's why I was also thinking like the Klingon glass or the Romulan one, because those are off-colored. Or even, well, the Fed glass is blue.
Let's see.
Johnny Snowball says Romulan is nicely green with a hex pattern.
Well, I'll give it a shot. You guys are going to need to talk while I'm doing all this. Otherwise, it sounds really quiet.
Yeah, we gotta fill the air here. So, Castmodean, how are you?
Hmm.
That good, huh?
Well, I didn't actually hear.
Oh, I just said, how are you?
Getting by. I'm still trapped in rurality,
Sure.
which is a place where they charge by the gigabyte of data use.
Ooh.
Satellite or Wi-Fi?
Neither. It is actually the ISP. They have tiered plans because apparently, I guess in the not civilization, they figure they can get away with it or something. I don't know.
So is it like DSL or cable?
It's cable.
Wow, they suck.
Yeah.
Do you at least
Yeah,
get a
yeah, it
good
does.
good speed for your?
Well, I do
Double?
at least. It is a 100 megabyte or megabit down, but still. That gets eaten up real quick when somebody is all about the Netflix.
Ah,
Anyway, you guys can kind of see what I'm going with the light beams. Class isn't bad either.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say offhand, do a band of those on either side of the glass, and
Well, you stack enough of these things and you can run right across it.
What
Now
are
what-
they?
yeah. What is that?
They're
Those
Borg. Go ahead.
yeah, they're Borg force fields.
Oh. Because, yeah, that looks
Interesting.
really cool.
Very interesting. You can actually walk on them too. That's great.
Yeah, they're narrow,
Yay,
but if you get enough of
collision.
them, then
That
And
is
then
not something I'd
once
ever
you
looked at.
line them up on one, you copy and paste them for the rest.
Oh yeah.
absolutely. I only have to do this once.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my quote exile has allowed me to do one thing. I have been working on a mission.
Ah, good.
An
What can you
old
tell us
mission.
about your
Mission.
mission?
That it's existed in some form in the game since season 4.
Since the dark time.
Yes. Since that time, we don't talk about.
That's okay. I wrote an entire mission script from scratch during the season 4 downtime, so I suppose it was at least beneficial in that regard.
But now
Give me time to write.
actually trying to get this thing potentially doing something. But it involved, completely recreating a map, which means I have to recreate another map because it revisits that map. Dogs and cats living together. Doom.
Fun stuff of this is just you got to get it just right.
I don't know what he's talking about at all.
So, what exactly is going to happen on this map?
You're going to incarcerate and then escape. At least that's what I think. Drogon's the master.
Why are we
of plot
being thrown into a Federation prison again for a crime we didn't commit?
This is going to turn into the A-Team real fast.
Didn't you?
Well, I can't do the Liquidator team that you've got.
True. I had the F-Team in-game. Trying to make costumes that look like the original A-Team, but unfortunately, with bridge officers not being able to wear off-duty clothing, my options are
What's
limited.
with that? Why is that?
And I asked Cryptic Joe Jing on the forums about it, because they're doing some costume revamping and cleaning up, essentially. And he said they still want that division there, because he says, oh, you don't want people on your ship not wearing regulation clothing. And I'm like, oh, come on.
That's why we need
we have so many non-regulation
faction.
costumes already.
I want a freeboot trader. I want to roam around the galaxy like Harry Mudd. Selling dribbles and Venus drugs and all sorts of other things. Gloamers. I want to have a trade in Gloamers.
Well, trading and that sort of thing has been a big part of a lot of space games over the years.
Privateer for
freelancer.
You could be a Ferengi. Like a traditional Ferengi.
Yeah, I guess that's the question, is how traditional are Ferengi now? It's been, what, 30 years since Rom took over?
Mm-hmm.
And culture's changed so much in 30 years.
Well, you notice outside of certain geographic areas of the northeastern quadrant of the North American continent.
You hear that?
Yeah.
People,
So
Castmodean just really made fun of, I'm just going to assume Maine. He's being mean to people from Maine. That's just horrible.
Yeah, Maine. That was what I was talking about.
Exactly.
And, he's complaining about it being rural where he is right now. Ask him what the population difference is between the city he's in and the one I'm in.
Castmodean, what is the population difference between the city you live in and...
Approximately 55,000.
What he's calling rural has that many more people than where I live.
Yes, but there's more land mass, so they're more spread out.
I think we've stumbled into an old series of in-jokes here.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
But if we're going to compare population sizes, I mean, I live in a town of 5,000, so...
Yes, exactly.
Surrounded by wheat fields. Sometimes encompassing wheat fields.
I work in a town of 5,000. The city of 5,000. The town that I live in is less than 1,000.
I've done that.
See, I didn't know what small town living was until I moved out here. I thought the town that I grew up in, which was 60,000, I thought that was small.
And I can look out.
No idea.
I can look out my front window and see Canadian Customs.
I hope they decorated nice.
Something big and red with maple leaves.
All you have to do is
really cool.
drag it outwards.
Yeah, you're getting closer.
Yeah, it's not placed right, but it looks cool.
It's placed a lot better than it could have been.
That's something that a lot of Foundry authors will sympathize with. It's not placed right, but it looks cool.
It's better than looking up and going, my God, what is that? Oh, That's the underside of an object because they were lazy and didn't draw it in all 3 dimensions.
It occurs to me, if I don't want the off-pathing to freak out when this thing, I got to put down an invisible floor.
An invisible corridor on either side so they don't go, no!
Well, no. I mean, I actually have to put an invisible wall that's here all the time. So even if they can't see it, I guess it depends. It depends on if we intend to have the bridge not extended.
It would be pretty cool to trigger it.
Yeah. In that case, I've got to put down an invisible wall so the pathing doesn't freak out. Or invisible floor. I should check and see what the size of invisible floors are. Heck. Of course, Taco did make them visible on the map editor, so what I do is I just throw down some carpet and use that as a size indicator.
I never thought of that. That's a good idea.
And one day the carpets will be solid again.
Carpets aren't solid?
Solid on the 2D
Well,
map.
In the
He's
map
talking about
editor.
Oh.
The
Yeah.
artifacting issue.
Which is fine for small objects, which are generally always broken,
No.
but
No, it's just not fine at all.
it's double fine.
The game company?
I miss Psychonauts, what can I say?
So what about the costume creation for this mission? What are they going to look like?
Well, obviously we'll need some Orions.
Are you going to use custom stock Orions, or are you going to create some?
Oh, I think we can create some. We got so many costume options now. We can create some cool looking Orions, I think.
I know, I get lost in the costume editor and I'm getting being done in the
Tell
Foundry.
which part is Kendra's favorite.
Unfortunately, it's kind of useless when it comes to mission creation. It's like, but they have such cool clothes, and I got nothing done on the story.
Maybe the clothes should be the story.
Well, there is a whole part in the infamous part 2, if it ever gets actually finished, where you have to select the wedding costumes.
When the costumes start attacking you.
Hey, no spoilers.
Here in my mind, I'm thinking how I could make mannequins come to life and attack the player.
Yes, well, that kind of happens.
Awesome.
Taking out outfits on a holodeck that's malfunctioning can be a little bit hazardous.
Sounds like an Amanda Barkley mission.
It's not malfunctioning, it's just operating in an extra normal manner.
So I think I've spent about a half hour making a bridge.
That's not unheard of for Foundry authors. Then again, once that part of the build is in place, then it's smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
Now I just gotta move
Until the next thing.
the negative down just a little on the Y.
Just a hair.
Yep, it's almost there.
And then Control C, Control V.
So, what is everyone's favorite part of mission creation?
This
That
part.
Everyone's?
I haven't said anything yet. I like the writing. I like doing dialogue.
And you compose your dialogue where?
Usually in a word processor. And then I bring
Now,
it in.
do you find
Go ahead.
do you find that you forget about character limits or buttons?
I find that I don't do as well with branching dialogue as other authors do because I write very linearly because I tend to have the captain respond how I would respond, which can be a good or bad thing. I think sometimes can be entertaining because I'm kind of a funny guy, or so I've been told. But you know, I have to remind myself to not write so linearly and put in some other options.
Yeah,
Especially, you know, your Vulcan-related options, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, I
tend
have
to
to
write-
remember not to write like a girl.
You know, I of course write in the professional world, and I don't think there's any such thing as writing like a girl.
Yes, well, there are certain things that guys just would not say. Just like when I'm playing missions, there's a lot of times where I'm playing through a mission and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't respond in any of those three ways.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're talking about dialogue and these are things that people say, there's absolutely differences there.
Yeah.
And you have to sort.
Hey, there we
It may
go.
sound strange, but I always like to say I hear voices in my head, and that's really not true. It's more like I hear tones of voice when I'm writing. I try and get the tone of a character down.
That
Check out
looks
that
really
awesome
cool.
bridge.
Very cool. I may have to steal that.
Now I'm wondering something.
Well, way back in the day, I borrowed a transporter pad design and have steadily changed it over the years. So borrowing concepts from people aren't terrible things.
No, definitely not.
Oh.
Most of the Foundry authors that I know are not terribly jealous of their techniques. They are perfectly willing to let other people use them.
Just
So
so
how
you know
many
that
objects was that?
This is 32.
And what's our budget limit still?
475. Luckily, I'm not expecting this to be a particularly...
just so you know the turbo lift doors are slightly off center. I think they're slightly too far to the right.
Yeah. Well, they're also... a little bit too far forward. Oh, okay, sorry. So, unlike... Looks like they
Wait.
went to...
You can select and rotate them all at once?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
My world
sometimes
just
freaks out.
changed. I think I tried doing that and it did freak out, so I assumed it didn't work.
It will. You
And
got to be very specific about which object you pick to rotate, because everything will rotate around that object, and you can do it from any object in the group that you've selected.
And as an
that
extra added bonus,
will
it
be the pivot
sometimes messes with your Y.
Well, I haven't found that yet. Do you
I
remember
think
when
it
that
generally, I think generally I found that it messes with your Y if you have the Y set to terrain, as opposed to, like, say, 0. Which is the frustrating. Because then everything's out of alignment.
So apparently,
descriptions crack me
we
up.
only have the warden. We don't have just the generic Mako guy.
Can't you use one of the captains?
Which captain?
Aren't the captain level mobs for Starfleet?
A lot of them are in Mako armor. The captain mobs.
But is there one
It's
with a
not.
helmet?
It's not quite the same Mako armor as the holographic guards.
But apparently all of them are helmetless.
Yeah, we have one.
But we can just build one from scratch.
I can't make it the same color, and it wouldn't flicker like a hologram. We do have one Mako hologram.
That would be a cool thing to get, is a hologram effect.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
something
It
that
would be
you could
having
somehow
only
apply to your NPC.
them and that one Cardassian.
Why can't you use the, oh, because you need more than one guard.
Well, it could be. It's all based on the same.
Well, it's not like we haven't set a precedent with the EMH that they have multiples of the same thing.
Yeah, we could do it. We could also just do a regular generic Mako armor.
He had that whole diatribe about. Actually, it was Louis Zimmerman, his creator, that had that whole diatribe about all these holograms working ore mining, all with his face.
And didn't they do like a scene in the last episode where they actually showed that, like a bunch of copies of
Did they?
the Doctor, like scrubbing power conduits?
Don't remember that.
Yeah, there's a whole thing in Voyager. I don't remember which episode it was, though.
All right, just to make Kendra happy, I'll throw in some costume creation. Unfortunately, we're limited to the same colors as the character creator.
One of the nice, like blacks and yellows that the hologram guide has.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to make this facility 4028.
Or you could say that maybe since the attack where they were all taken offline briefly, Starfleet decided that holographic guards wasn't a great idea. Or all holographic guards wasn't a great idea, maybe.
Yeah, they use them as a supplement, but they have...
So now we use androids.
Because they can't be tampered with or anything. Right?
Right.
Right?
What could possibly go wrong?
I'm actually finally getting some work done in my own mission while we're doing this. Using one of Dragoon's techniques of having the little glowy thing on the floor where you're going to beam something in.
That's the one we went over last week?
Yep. Except I don't want people to stand on top of it because it's going to spawn something. So I'm using the interact is actually going to be an invisible wall that keeps you away from where that object's going to be.
Well, that's interesting.
Hmm.
It looks like he has beer can missiles on his hips.
Say, I don't recognize the Mako tactical.
Because I think that
these are some of the variants that you're supposed to be able to earn in game somewhere and maybe never got hooked up.
Maybe. Well, it'll look a little different. That'll be good.
Not at all like a scary robot.
So keep him. Though in fairness, a prison guard would never have anything that a prisoner can grab.
Well, meanwhile, I've been building a Stonehenge. Because we can.
Building a Stonehenge, huh?
Yep.
You remembered about all the Romulan stuff, right?
What do you think's the henge?
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like before where we had to use, I don't know what you would even use before we had those building blocks, I guess.
There were the ruined buildings, and that was about it, and grave markers.
Mm-hmm.
We were
There's a
having
time
this
before-
whole conversation. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'd say there was a time before the building blocks.
No, there was time
There was
before the new Romulus ruins.
Oh, okay.
Still would like to get the gateway ruins, but
That would be nice. There's some good assets there.
I need everything but the Guardian. Because
Which
we
is
don't
fine.
need to open that can of worms.
No. No, the Foundry community has annoyed Mr. What's his name?
Mr. Ellison.
Mr. Ellison quite enough for one lifetime.
Yes, he's not a fan of derivative work.
No, so you weren't there, Castmodean, but the last night I was there at STLV, we were down in the restaurant having a very boisterous conversation.
Ah, right.
And then I looked over and there's Harlan Ellison sitting in the booth across the restaurant, sort of looking in our direction.
Yes,
I'm like,
I
"Oh,
heard
God."
tales of this because my response to this was a not quite safe for broadcast word.
All right, there's my prison guard.
That took nowhere near as long.
That works for me.
If only I could spell prison.
That loops very well in with a conversation that you and I were having, Dragoon, before the show started, which is one of the segments we might want to do on an upcoming show is common grammatical mistakes.
Well, all right, but I mean, most of us
Spelling
aren't
goes in
coming
with
from
that.
don't come from a writing background.
Yeah, but most of us can spell prison on the first try.
You'd think.
Lots of common ones are there, and people confusing are and is, and lack of punctuation, excessive
Mhm.
punctuation, random capitalization.
That's one that I find quite often is people capitalize the strangest things.
Yeah, it's like an addiction where you want to start capitalizing
Mhm.
like every noun.
I think they teach that often enough in schools, and I found it to be not great in real life.
But really made this. She's doing the hologram effect, which is cool.
Yes.
He's not doing it. Oh, there he is. Oh, he's different hologram effect. All right. Well, these guys look intimidating enough.
Hers seems to flicker more often.
Yeah, it's a different effect entirely.
Those bridges look so awesome.
Totally worth a half hour I spent on them. Oh, this is nice. We
None
got
of the Foundry author is ever known to obsess about micro details for their That one shot glass isn't lined up. Why isn't it lined up? And now you get to make them disappear.
All right, riddle me this, gentleman and lady. How tall is the space volume?
That I do not know.
It's not something I've ever looked at.
I bet you it's about
I
the
thought there
same.
were different sizes.
I don't know if it's a cube or if it's not.
It should say in the dimensions, right?
It thinks it's 1,000 feet.
Yeah, but is it 1,000 feet square? Click on it.
I want to say it's not square. I know the underwater volume is not square.
No, it's like 20 feet, 10 feet deep, something like that. That one I played with a lot. It's claiming it's a cube.
It's a fake.
All right, I'm just gonna put it down as far as I can, see if it kills me. If it doesn't kill me, then we can use it.
Yeah, if you're running on the bridge and you suddenly start choking, you know it's too big.
Well, I can't. Yeah, well, I can't make it any smaller. It's a pretty large volume, even the smaller one. But I can.
It would have been nice to have some very small volumes, so you could like suck the air out of one particular room or something.
Yeah.
Of course, you could set a reach marker so that as they fall through the reach marker, the volume turns on.
Well, I mean, that's true. Although it would
That's
reset
not a bad
if
suggestion.
Do reach markers work vertically like that, though?
Yes,
Yeah,
they do,
they're-
because Paul was trying to do the whole thing with the turbo lift. It didn't work, but it did trigger.
Yeah, they're
It just
basically
didn't work 'cause he was
spherical.
trying to reach.
The only problem is that it would trigger the first time. If they jumped off again,
It
it
wouldn't.
wouldn't. And you'd also have to despawn the thing once they respawned.
Right. But depending on where your respawn point was, you could just have a second reach marker that turned it off as they ran towards their objective.
Given all the wonderful progress we're making on this mission, this may end up becoming a long-term project.
You know, I was thinking the same thing, and actually, I don't think that's a bad thing.
So maybe like,
Just have this mission that we pop in and do some work on. Maybe not every show, but every other show, something like that.
okay, my crew's dying, so it is taller than
Yeah,
150.
I'm going to say you're in the volume.
Your NPCs are not, just so everyone notes that. NPC contacts are not killed by the space volume.
No, they're kind of exempt from that.
They have
But
superpowers.
Thalians that are regular combat ones are. That's
Yes,
they
supposed to
will
be,
be-
or at least they were. I don't know if
they
they've
will
actually
be killed.
fixed that.
Yes, well, their
'Cause that was
their
the
EV
funniest
suits
thing.
are
The
an
armored
illusion
spacesuited people died.
because they're not
Johnny,
really.
Johnny Snowball is saying 300 to 330.
Okay, so that's much taller than I can actually make. I can only get down like just under 150.
Yeah, the bottom of the thing. I would suggest just sticking some invisibles so people don't fall off the bridge or jump intentionally, because I know they like to do that.
And you can't set the volume like all the way down in the lower corner of the map when it triggers, right?
No, because it needs to be underneath me, or when I jump off the. Oh, my doors are looking
That's
nice.
almost good.
Well, they're a little far back, but Of course, one of the bridge officers got stuck in it. Okay. Moving on.
So when you get into the cell area, because I haven't looked in there, what do the doors do there? Are they locked open or
They're just missing.
they're locked open?
And we don't have that cool red effect that we got for the Thalian room, do we? Or is that baked into this map?
That might be baked into the map. I remember it's on the far side. Yeah, I think it's baked into the map.
Yeah, that looks like it's... But we don't need to go there. Now, do you try to obscure any parts of the map you don't access when you build, or?
Yes, especially in this case where I'm not going to be using it all. So.
Now, by obscure, what you mean is like sticking a big object over the rest of the map so that on the mini-map all they'll see is that and not...
Oh, that?
No.
Right. But
I'm not that
what I
anal.
mean is, like, I have, on ground maps where I've built my own interiors, I've, on occasion, just stuck a bunch of platforms floating in space so that they obscure that section of the map.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal to me.
I never
Personal
even thought
preference.
about doing that. That's actually kind of a cool idea.
Well, if most
Because
of my maps
one of
were...
the first complaints I got was the immersion breaking I did by putting my ship interior on a ground map. The second complaint I got was about the birds I never heard.
Okay, I could get the birds. Yeah, they added birds
Considering
to
they're-
grounds
yeah.
at some point. All right,
And
so
I
I'm
was like,
thinking...
What birds?
But I thought that was one of the funniest parts was the whole dialogue you added there about the ambient track.
Yeah.
What?
That was a, okay, let's explain the birds.
Can't you... isn't it tied to the backdrop? Or is it to the map itself?
I think it's the map itself, the same way that almost every single one of these stupid ground maps I keep trying to use have these stupid floating dandelion seeds.
Well, the dandelion seeds are definitely tied to the map, but I don't think the sounds are. I think the sounds might be part of the...
Actually, I think in some cases at least you're right because with my Bajor map I changed the backdrop and got rid of the angry shouting voices because I didn't want an angry shouting rioting Bajor. I wanted a peaceful quiet Bajor.
Yeah.
That's never happening.
Of course it is. It's just only happening when we're there.
Bajor is all peaceful these days. Or it should be. When,
Because the circle would never come back.
Hey, that could be a Foundry mission.
In fact, there's a thought, an entire mission about how Bajor is trying to withdraw from the Federation and become pacifist. And sit out the war.
And then suddenly the circle is becomes almost on the side of the Federation because they want to fight in the war.
Except for the circle was all about expelling the outsiders, so that wouldn't really work. It was Bajor for Bajorans.
You're
So
totally ruining my fun turnabout here. That's
not
not
to
nice.
mention that the Bajorans have never actually shied away from violence.
They did
Actually,
before the
they did.
Cardassians came because they
Yep.
were
That's why
They
they
were
put
very
up with
pacifistic.
The Cardassians for so
Yeah.
long. If you
Okay,
read
so-
the novels.
But the question
Just-
then becomes, when did the Cardassians come?
They occupied Bajor for about 50 years.
Right, but the Bajorans had contact with them well before then.
Yeah,
I'm-
in the novels, they kind of slowly took over. It was kind of like just a gradual thing where they gave up their freedoms, and then the next thing they knew, they were basically slaves on their own planet.
It sounds like they were occupied in all but name for long before the official.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things, like the light sail ship that Cisco builds could make it to Cardassia, so they had first contact back then, whenever those ships were out there. The first Bajoran Republic had at least had some form of interstellar travel, because they colonized neighboring worlds.
But basically, the way that they portray it in the novels is that even though the Bajorans had the ability to explore, that they didn't really like leaving home that much because they had everything they wanted on their home planet, and they were quite content being there, and they'd explore somewhat, but it wasn't a major pursuit.
And then the Cardis came and they sort of did their thing.
It kind of makes me wonder if there have been other races that the Cardassians have interacted with.
Well, that's something they never really touched on, is that the Cardassian Union is a whole lot of systems.
Oh yeah, they talk about the fact that they conquered other planets. That it's a thing that they do.
What I actually find really fascinating, though, is that the Cardassians at one point were very much like the Bajorans.
Well,
And,
there are some theories that they're actually related.
I don't know if they need to be related, but at some point, I don't know if the Bajorans almost kind of reminded them of the way they used to be.
I believe that's touched on somewhere. I think I almost want to say Dukat was said something similar to that.
Yeah, I know they say that. Well, I mean, it was even earlier than that. It was in Chain of Command, where Picard was going on about how Cardassians were once a very deep spiritual people, and they basically went through a rampant famine, and basically forced them into a military dictatorship.
And that's part of it, is that they were very jealous of the lush habitat that the Bajorans had, and how much food that they had, and how easy things were for them. There was some resentment there because of that, and the fact that they took it for granted.
Of course, as Bazag reminds us, all Star Trek races are related thanks to the preservers.
That's a good point.
Which means we are the Iconians.
Star Trek's answer to why you all humanoids.
No, it wasn't budget constraints at all.
And I can't run off.
Good. That will prevent people like Markhawkman and Woody Valley, who's in our chat room, from jumping to their deaths.
Or
And
I'll
Bajorans.
roll off this section.
I don't jump, I just trip.
I'll never forget. I think it was my, I don't know, it was like my sixth mission. It was that one that I wrote over the season 4 downtime. I was having some people play it in a group, and one of whom was Woody Valley, and the first thing he chose to do in that playtest was jump out a window, which I hadn't thought of before. And so he's sitting at the bottom of this, he'd fall like 1,000 feet or something like that, and he's into the bottom and said, "How do I get back up?" I was like, well, okay, that's the benefit of having people playtest your mission, is those kinds of things that you wouldn't think of. I had no idea somebody would jump out that window.
Uh-huh.
It's the first thing
That's actually a story from the same time frame of this mission. I had published it to test out my attempt at a mechanic where you get to fall to your doom. This is back when we discovered you couldn't fall to your doom.
Yes, indeed. Your bridge officers can die, but not you.
So, yeah, I had somebody, many old-timers might remember Phil Bones.
Of course.
He played the map. He fell down the hole, and he didn't die because he was so kinetically resistant that he falls down the hole. He has a little bit of health, so I'd put spiders down there to kill him. Killed all the spiders. And I was like, oh crap, now what am I going to do? So my choices were build an entire tunnel system of a winding path in order to get back up from the bottom of the hole, or just give up on the idea. Well, about 25 hours of building up a ramp, I went with option 2. And just gave in.
Now, of course, obviously our map was not tall enough to do this, but you can now spawn a space volume down there that will kill the player. If your map is tall enough.
Well, actually, maybe. I don't know. I don't actually remember how tall the map was. But maybe. I'll have to play with that. Maybe it could work again. Yay! So I can have people give me 1 stars because they fall down a hole because they can't jump. Because I live in an age where people never played Pitfall.
What's Pitfall?
And there's my answer right there.
I don't remember it either.
Alright, boys and girls. Once upon a time, we had consoles built by Atari. You remember Atari?
They used to own Star Trek Online.
Well, back then, we had side-scrolling games. And there was one called Pitfall, which literally was an endless loop of, I'll say, procedurally generated. I don't remember actually if they were or not. But it was an endless cycle of side-scrolling maps where you had alligators to jump over, swamps, tar pits, holes you could fall down into, scorpions, all this kind of stuff. And back in those days, the only point of those games was to see how high of a score you could get.
Oh, yes, I remember some of those well.
Asteroids,
good old side scroller.
Donkey Kong.
Side scrollers.
My dad loved Load Runner.
Load Runner. There we go.
The ones I remember from that era were, like Qbert and
Yep.
Oh, what was the one where you had like all the incoming missiles and you had to try to shoot them down?
Missile Command.
Missile Command.
Didn't have an Atari, but I did have an Apple II Plus, which had a lot of these games on it.
Oregon Trail.
Oh, there's a classic. Everybody knows Oregon Trail.
Which,
Everybody knows Oregon Trail.
Total complete side note, it was on Kickstarter. It should be out come Christmas, but there's Orion Trail.
Nice.
Space version?
Which in many ways is the spiritual love child, I guess you could say, of Oregon Trail.
And lest we forget, Gene Roddenberry's original idea for Star Trek was Wagon Train to the Stars. So,
well, that's how he had to sell it to NBC because
Westerns were a big deal at the time. Bonanza and that sort of thing.
That's all NBC thought people wanted was I Love Lucy and Westerns, whatever derivative of those we could make.
Which is funny because he's really actually describing Firefly, not Star Trek.
He just didn't know it yet.
I
sadly
can't
never
die.
Sadly, never
I
got
can't
the chance.
die.
Sadly, Gene never got the chance to see Firefly. I think he would have liked it. In some ways. Perhaps not in others.
I still
Yes.
don't know how I did it, but there is a way on some maps to actually fall off the map.
Some of them don't have their bounding in place. Like the bounding box isn't solid, so you can fall right out of the, presumably for almost forever, or at least until the floating point
I
catches up
landed.
with
I
you.
just couldn't get back.
Oh.
And I was like in this black space outside the map.
Yep, been there, done that.
You're right. The door
That
is.
was Baz's mission when I first
I
started.
don't know if I've done that in a Foundry mission. I did it in new ESD one time, just sort of glitched outside the map and started falling forever.
Well, just the other day, I actually managed to get myself stuck inside of one of the Ryzen towers. Thankfully, you can transport site to site and get out of that one.
Yeah, in this game, there's a lot better travel options on a lot of maps, so you can get yourself out of trouble.
So, we haven't even actually gotten to any dialogue yet.
Oh,
Well,
I'm
we're not
somewhat
at the
skeptical
dialogue
we'll actually
stage.
get that far. Actually, funny for me, dialogue is one of the last things I will write.
For me, it's often one of the first things.
I mean, I'll have like rudimentary dialogue, like stating obvious points or something like that, but not what you consider fleshed out dialogue.
Go here, do this. I am
Yeah.
telling you things. Exposition.
The gist of this conversation is this.
I've been sitting here with my Iconian War mission. The script has been essentially done for quite a while. Did it all during downtime.
I will be right back.
You know, social Foundry authoring is kind of a fun concept.
It's like social engineering, only with pictures.
Like Foundry building
Not
with a pickup
really.
group.
Johnny Snowball. This is a quote. All my dialogue is the F word till I finish building, and then I write it and paste it. He says that way he never misses an empty box, and that's sort of clever because it'll trip the profanity filter and give you a little error indication down at the bottom left there.
Yeah, it'll also do that if you leave it empty, though.
Well, there's a question. Does the profanity filter stop bollocks?
I can find out. I'm in the Foundry right now.
Because we know it does not like Jaya's virgin eye.
Bollocks is fine.
You're not British, after all.
In the future, everyone is American. Except for Captain Picard, of course.
No, he's sort of
Yes, he's a
French.
very English-sounding Frenchman.
Mm-hmm. I think
Well,
I heard
you know-
the theory the other day. I can't even remember what it was. It was some funny theory, but you know what could have happened is that sometime in between England conquered France.
Oh, that was my theory, that
That was your theory.
the English went after France the first chance they got when World War III just broke out.
So the Eastern Coalition became...
Let's take
Yeah,
out all of our
I
historical
suppose it's
resentment on
possible.
France.
So we decided to make France the capital of the Federation.
Yeah, but it's not French France. It's now British France.
Which a funny thing, you used the term dragooning earlier, which is actually
That's a French word.
which a term the French used to describe British dragoons, going back to that whole French-English rivalry. Okay.
I have been finding out about my ancestry, and the whole England-France thing is exactly, that's my people. The back and forth between them.
Yeah, I mean, within the historical context, it's kind of funny to read about. Okay, so I think I've
We have
taken about as
our,
far in the
yeah.
building.
We've got what we need as far as the mechanics of this map.
More or less, stuff is about as far as I can build it without knowing what this story has to do with.
So where do we want to start the story here?
I don't think. Okay, so we kind of got to figure out where we're going with this. So we know that we're trying to get a meeting with the. And I say we go for the head. Let's go straight for who's he face, whose name I'm spacing on.
Melanie or Melisandre, whoever it was.
I mean, like Oak she's never been shown in Stowe, so she's fair game.
Quick, not over to Stowe Wiki here. Orion Syndicate.
Because we know Hassan the Undying was kicked out by her.
Melanie Deanne. Or something like that.
All right, so the first part of the mission is trying to
figure out where she is.
Get in contact with her. And we're doing it by basically posing as prisoners.
So we need a prisoner in one of the cells there from the Orion Syndicate.
A trusted lieutenant.
Yeah. Who got caught doing
because
something.
It can't be a most trusted lieutenant. The Evil Overlord Handbook has proven that only most trusted lieutenants are dead men.
Well, here, let's have some fun. Let's go actually create our contact.
Yeah. Actually, you know what we have now is we have some inmate garb, don't we?
Yes.
Yes, yes, we do.
It's actually got like Tholium logos
I thought we had some of the Tholian.
But I think we could still use it.
And we also have we have a ton of costume stuff we can play with now. So many costumes.
So I came up with a name for our contact here. I'm going to call him Margot Fall.
Not Django Fell?
Fall, not Fell. All right. Double check here. If I make him Orion, do I still have access to?
Of course, we don't have the one costume I need, which is always how it happens, which is the new Zindi Primate outfit from the Lobi store.
Oh, we do have inmate. Nice. Although if I make him Klingon, he's gonna not have the usual options. He's gonna have has the reduced color palette.
The Klingon coloration colors.
All right, so we're gonna go the alien route,
which unfortunately doesn't give us the bolts in his head.
Well, they don't all have bolts in their heads, do they?
Well, all the screen mail Orions we've seen have bolts and clothespins and all. They're kind of like 80s punk rockers.
All right, we just want me to get...
That was like a couple hundred years ago, though.
Or you could just do a female.
I don't think they make inmate outfits in bikini.
I meant as an alien.
And on the plus side, with a tight shirt, she has arms.
It is nice to have the arms back for that. It was a little odd. I can now make the Mr. T for my Ferengi A-Team squad.
We have Ferengi Mohawks.
No. Obviously, have to do creative license.
His headband is all black.
That's about as close as I could get, I think, with Ferengi.
I do wish they would go back and do some work on hair, though.
Well, you know, at least we get new hair when they put it in.
Yes, that is true. I did totally ask for the doctor, and we totally got the doctor.
We totally got the doctor.
The one thing I would like to see is I would like to see curly hair that is actually normal, like curly hair.
Well,
All we have is...
That was a big debate on the forums, and the tricky part is that it is really hard to model. Because it isn't a solid mass like straight hair is.
We have messy hair. I don't see how it's that different.
Well, their hair in Stowe is not particularly sophisticated modeling.
No, it's just kind of there.
And they probably, you know, they probably want to keep the polycamp down. It's not animated or anything.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, can you imagine what hair would do if it was animated? Do you remember how
the capes.
Just the Orion loincloth would drape?
Yes.
So yeah, this is about the closest we get, and this is kind of what it would end up looking like. Maybe a little less organized, but it's really tricky to work with and make it look good.
That's the hair I end up using on pretty much all of my Klingons, just because it looks better than the regular dreadnoughts or not dreadnoughts, dreadlocks.
And they get better at it, but yeah, I mean you can kind of see it. The effect isn't perfect, and you can kind of tell it's a texture modeled on a mesh.
Well, it could be styled curly hair. Like it wouldn't have to be loose. Like they could do one of the ponytails with curly hair.
Yeah, there are a few tricks to it, but yeah, it's very hard. I'm not saying it couldn't be done. It just is tricky.
I guess that's the next question. Are there any Star Trek characters with curly hair that we could petition for?
Oh, you mean get somebody from the show with curly hair on and then use them as an excuse to get them to... Okay.
That's a good question.
Marina Sirtis is the first and only one I can really think of offhand.
So we don't have inmate clothes for females.
Really?
It's a male-only prison. The women's prison is across the sector.
That's where the bikinis are.
That said, we don't actually need the actual inmate. Because we've got Enterprise uniforms.
And just make them all matching colors.
Azure Alliance and Primar bring up a good point, which is Colm Meaney had curly hair.
Yes, that's
true.
But
his is short.
Which his is not actually all that different from mine, so I'm totally in favor of putting something like that in.
And
we need some guy curly hair too. So we have to get both of them on.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be against having the head of Starfleet Corps of Engineers totally on in the game.
Darn right. Best character in all of Star Trek, I think.
Oh, we have inmate pants, but not the shirt. Unless I'm just missing it.
Maybe it's there. Maybe. No.
I don't know what
No, they're not alphabetical order. They're in random order. Okay.
You run
Well,
into that every so often.
That's a good question. We know that they're messing around with the tagging for uniforms. Does that tagging also translate into the editor?
It might.
Possibly. There's definitely a connection between the two.
Cindy reptilians.
Yeah, no, thinking about it, I've never run into it. And I have been through the costume options a few times.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go for the standby of Enterprise uniforms. They work pretty well.
Of course, these are uniforms that were not... The inmate ones are not ones that were put in the costume creator in-game for player captains, so that may be where the issue arises.
Yeah, it's probably just a tagging issue.
It may be a glitch that we even have it anyway.
I don't know. It sounds like something Zero would add.
Of course, it doesn't look like the inmate one is modeled that far off of the Enterprise ones.
No, it's a variation on a theme.
I imagine, yeah.
So I'm having a hard time finding the Enterprise bottoms.
Go back up. Up, down, right below counselor. Up. One more.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thanks. Yeah, I think the Enterprise has pockets, and that's about the biggest difference.
Primar says you can hand wave it as they earn the reward for good behavior or bribing the guard of getting better clothes.
Nah.
You've unlocked pockets.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna worry about it. It's not a detail that anybody's gonna notice.
They actually talk about inmates changing their uniforms in Orange is the New Black. Not the show, the book.
I didn't know that was based on a book.
It's a true story. For the book, not the show.
Is the show one of those that's very, very loosely based on the book?
Yes.
Based on true events.
All right, I mean, that looks like a pretty decent prison uniform.
Sure. Shame we can't get like a fluorescent orange, but that's a...
I could try for a brighter orange.
Oh, that's a nice orange there.
What did Tom Paris wear?
That's a good question.
Don't remember. It was not something memorable.
Do you want to change her undershirt too?
I don't want something as bright as.
I would do like a slightly darker shade of orange.
Be a duller shade. No, I have never given any thought to prison shoes before.
She looks like a pumpkin. Seriously, she's orange and she's got a green
part of the
stem.
shame of
the part of the shame of being a prisoner is that you have to have the most clashing color scheme ever for an Orion.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. A picture of Tom Paris in prison. And it almost looks like he's wearing the outfits that they wore on the Regula station.
Oh, really?
Maybe they reused a costume.
Isn't that like
Or is just sort of
vaguely
generic civilian garb.
motion picture looking.
It's like kind of like a cross between the regular outfit and the Ryzen one. Which, do we have the Ryzen Explorer outfits?
We do. That's it. I mean, that was kind of a work colony deal. I mean, he was clearly working outside on something, and it was a lower
In
security.
New Zealand.
It's like a
Australia.
vacation where you have to lift things.
Those cushy Starfleet prisons.
Not like we have 40 years later.
In the future, we don't care about such amenities.
I just noticed she has no eyebrows.
They also take those away. You get them back for good behavior.
Hey, for an Orion, eyebrows are a deadly weapon.
That would be kind of funny to go into the lore of what they do to prevent, especially if this facility is manned by real people now. What they do to prevent her from trying to seduce one of the guards.
It's one of the reasons why they use the holograms.
It was pheromones, if I remember the
Yeah, Enterprise
episode correctly.
Or if they make her like take a treatment or something to suppress.
Okay,
those.
so here, when you go in, or when they prepare you to go into the cell, have them give the player an injection of something that suppresses that.
Well, I kind of figured we'd have to hand wave it that way anyways, just because.
Yeah. A pheromone inhibitor. Says Bazak.
Just because if we're going undercover with the Orion Syndicate, she's not the only Orion you're going to meet. So.
Yes, but remember that not all your players are going to be male.
True.
This is true, but did they ever say that it specifically doesn't work on females, or that they didn't?
Pheromones wouldn't work on a female.
Yeah, in Enterprise, the females were immune.
Actually, if I remember, didn't it make them agitated?
But the captain's going to be dragging around his bridge officers, regardless of what we do. So the odds are that one of them at least is male.
But when you write the dialogue, you might want to make it
have a dialogue
generic
option that says, "I don't have any males in my unit. We don't need these."
Oh, there's a volume I'd love to have and would get abused to heck.
What's that?
The in the Empok Nor one, that volume that they have there that makes you turn against basically everybody.
Oh, the confused one?
Yeah.
Funny enough, when I was doing the Eidolon for part 2, I actually reskinned Orion, so because the captain level mobs have the confuse power or the seduce power, so it could cause you to switch sides, or some of your crew members to switch sides. All right, we need.
Which that is a thing that, to be fair, the game does not discriminate. When you are fighting against Orions, whether or not you're female or male, they can still use their powers on you in the game.
It's hard to say how hardwired the player gender is into the game. I mean, they've always one of the things they've always resisted putting in, or at least putting the time to figure out how to do, is to allow players to switch their gender, like they can switch their name with a unlock from the C-store, that sort of thing.
Well, I just wouldn't mind having, gender tags.
That would be very nice.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of guessing as to how it works for Cryptic, but I get the impression it's like something like kind of like a trigger. Have you guys ever seen some of the triggers in Neverwinter's Foundry?
I looked at them, but that was like
It's been
Okay,
been a long time
so-
since I've ventured over to the dark side.
in addition to the norm, what our triggers like how ours work, they have an extra set of triggers that work outside of the normal triggers that are basically show this object only if something is true. So
basically
for instance,
things that look at the metadata for your character.
and a lot of those ifs are things like crafting skill and more incidental things. So
If elf equals C door.
So it becomes only show this. For instance, you could do it with the dialogue choice. Only show this dialogue choice if gender equals female, or if gender equals male, or species equals Boolean. Look in the force.
And we know that all of that data exists there because, I mean, we're nothing but a spreadsheet. Let's not say we're anything but a spreadsheet.
But the point I was getting to is that I've seen instances where the dialogue will be written specifically for male or female or for specific species. So clearly they've gotten that ability at some point. So I'm what we would basically need is those meta tag or those meta triggers to basically be able to sort our dialogue boxes and then have two sets of options for male or female.
And as always, it means somebody has to write it, which is the stumbling point.
You write the dialogue or make the feature?
Write the calls.
Yeah, it'd be a new piece of tech. I mean, I don't think it's, as far as I can see, I don't think it's a tag like we think of tags. I think it's a special trigger. I mean, wishful thinking, I'd love to have it. It would be super awesome. And I'm not going to say never. But it would probably require programmers. Those things they don't like to use on the Foundry unless they have to.
You know what would be awesome?
Finding a way to write programmer.
Might have to narrow it down.
I would love to be able to move stuff from one project to another.
That would be very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like dialogue trees and costumes and maps. Like, not share them between players, but just share them in, like, your stuff and then be able to access them from all your projects.
You know, I have a feeling that the costume import-export would crash a lot less now because we've got all those missing costumes added, or most of them.
Yeah.
That's part of what was messing it up.
Well, the funny thing is that it's not... The problem with the costume importer is that it didn't do any checks. I mean, if you import a costume into the character editor in the main game, it does a check and it basically knocks out any errant or variables. And ours just didn't do that. So that's what led to crashes and very weird settings and stuff like that. Especially when we would try to import the import existing NPCs, especially things like animals, which don't conform to our character models. Gee, looks annoyed.
I also want car calls.
You want what?
The car calls.
Car calls?
You know, the new Iconian
Stitch.
insidious weapon of mass cuteness.
Experiment 626.
Oh, those guys.
Things.
Give it time. I'm sure Zero's already on it.
We don't have any of the pets in the Foundry.
Oh, sure we do.
We got hippos. I think
We got all kinds of them.
We don't have the cats. We don't have the birds. We don't have the raptors.
Actually, and there's some of them that they're
We
on
have
Tribble right
rising.
now.
We have Ryzian birds.
Where?
Look at my screen.
That's a
Yeah,
lot of
okay.
birds.
Those are all new.
They're in the NPC contact.
Those
list.
are new. Those were not there.
We got our collection of Eppos, formerly known
Do we
as
have
squirrels.
kitties?
We have rising lizards. We don't have cats, I think, yet.
Do we have monkeys?
We have feather
Um,
monkeys
We do have feather
with the
monkeys.
tiki masks. Without.
Ooh, we got new stuff.
We get this. We have been. This has been a good year for the Foundry.
Mhm.
We have been getting quite a lot of stuff. I mean, I have no complaints in the asset addition department.
Well, because back when I was doing my quarters, I wanted to have pets, and all there were fish.
Not even
We got-
lionfish. It's a monkey joke.
Okay, here's a fun one as well. We have the baby T-Rex.
We do?
We do?
Really?
Yep. And we have the full-size Tyrannosaurus
Maybe under
Rex.
dinosaur.
It's
Wow, we
it's
totally
called
did.
Both T-Rex Baby 01.
We didn't
wow.
have that before. It's adorable.
I didn't. Why does this have 0 written all over it?
Because it's written much to his father's
Well, okay.
his favorite
There's an
toy is
easy
an
way to
Eppo
tell. Read the
plushie.
description.
Okay, that's definitely a
The
0
description
description.
tells you who put it in.
Mhm.
Wow, I didn't even realize we had this.
Both
Exactly.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, king among dinosaurs, but don't mention his underbite. He's sensitive about it.
Yep, that would be a 0 entry.
This curious
So,
little
yeah,
fellow
she totally
drives
got
his
it
mum
in for us.
batty, makes messes, and chews on the furniture.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Maria, we love you.
We could do an entire episode just on funny Foundry descriptions.
Well, and they can all be traced back to one person.
Okay.
That's what we should
So-
do. Is have get Zero on the show again and have her read them.
In her Epo lady voice.
Yes.
Don't you want a Foundry friend?
I mentioned the dialogue thing because as we're doing this, I am also painstakingly copying a dialogue tree into a Word document so that I can put it in another project because I decided I didn't want to use this map and I wanted to use the map in the other project.
Is the other project something you already started?
Uh-huh.
So you can't do the import thing. I'm
Nope.
afraid.
They're two different projects. And one has an extremely detailed map that, yeah. And Johnny Snowball saw my dialogue tree and he's like, it's not that big. And I'm like, it's plenty big.
Johnny Snowball probably has a distorted view of what constitutes a big dialogue tree.
Yes, apparently
If you've
mine
played
is
his missions.
apparently mine is a sprig. A sprig of a tree.
Kind of curious what he actually put in what a prison cell. Have a bed. I put in a desk, but it's such a large space and
Well, you want 2 beds, though. Because you want it conceivable that they could be assigned a roommate.
Ooh, can we make bunk beds?
Yes. My suggestion is to use the Bajoran candelabra things as the posts.
Don't those have candles on top of them, though?
Yes.
Well, the fun thing is that the bed is tall enough that the candle gets hidden inside the bed.
Ah.
It sounds like you did this. Have you done this?
Why, yes, I did.
on Keeping Up with the Jensens, right?
yes, I did.
That's
And let me tell you, it is a pain in the rear trying to line up those on four corners.
As I
And
suggest,
this is before copy
toilets, but you
Don't
never
actually
show
have
toilets in
those.
Star Trek.
Oh! I made a toilet, and a sink in mine.
Well,
I don't remember what I used, but I
oh well,
did.
got us all excited there.
I'm in the Foundry right now. I can tell you in a minute.
In your base, killing your dudes.
Actually, in the house that I'm moving the dialogue tree to.
What is this house you're working on?
Well, it was supposed to be Kendra's quarters, but now it is going to be a house in the beginning of a mission that I'm working on. The dolls that I'm making, I created characters in the Foundry based on each of the dolls because I started writing backstory for them, and then that became a mission, which I've been working on instead of working on my part 2 that I'm supposed to be finishing. Now that we actually have the ESD map.
I keep putting off a part 3 I'm supposed to be working on.
Okay, let's see here.
Well, the nice thing is, for this particular long-term project here, Dragoon, you don't have to work on it any other time than the roundtable.
True. Well, I mean, I've been putting off part 3 just because of the I didn't want to.
Yeah, so you can't use this as an excuse.
I didn't want to try and map build with the
yeah,
editor.
It is kind of annoying.
Especially since I'm in that stage where I'm building all the maps and.
Question for everybody. Does anyone remember when you're setting up a troll, what's a good speed for sort of a run? Where it's not so fast it looks silly.
I was thinking it was 5.
Oh no, it's more than that.
Foundry editing not allowed. Yay for
gotta let it
the trigger too quickly.
Oops, that was the wrong map.
And Cryptic, if you're watching, I want this tactical variant of the Mako uniform or Mako armor.
You can't handle the tactical.
It looks cool.
Johnny says 16 to 20 is run speed. And I was thinking down like 10 or 12 is a good walking pace.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, I guess another effect we need to ask for now is that trans-temporal effect that they put into Time in a Bottle. Where we can have wandering ghosts.
That was pretty cool.
Let's see here.
And if we could map them to real-time objects.
So do you guys want me to just show you? Or screenshot?
Why don't you kind of, take a screenshot.
It's a trap.
Now granted, this isn't really going to work.
The best way would be to tell us what assets you used.
Yeah, but it's not going to really work because I made it a Bajoran-y looking toilet, so it's like all browns and.
Yeah, it doesn't really work for prison, does it?
No, I stuck a bowl in a stool and used... What is that? It's not a barrel. Something Klingon that's round. Let me go back to my list.
So we have those NPC groups that are like untargetable, right? Or they don't fight back. They don't.
They're
do nothing?
non-combat.
They're non-combat.
So yeah, you can't shoot at them, and nobody else will shoot at them, and they
Mhm.
won't shoot anything.
So you could use those essentially to fake having people slightly out of phase or something. They wouldn't react to you in any way.
Yeah, I had my patrol set to 8.
How fast do they move? Do you know?
I'm about to find out. Because that's what I used on that Purity map. Is I did have one group of them patrolling, and they were normal walking speed.
Yeah.
They didn't lope like they were gunfighters, and they didn't do that little forced march thing like they were.
Power walking.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder. So, I think you could totally use the ESD single seat bench to make a toilet.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you could even sit in it.
Right.
You
Use that as,
use the sittable one.
yeah, use it as the base for the toilet. And I'm trying to find something that'll work well for a tank with that.
It's the captain's chair.
Actually, haha. Okay, so ESD console 1, if you flip it backwards, I think you can use that for the back of the tank.
But would they waste water in the future? Wouldn't it be a sonic system? We're not going to think about that too hard.
Well, it
No,
could
no,
actually
we're
be one of the kind that that incinerates, but those still have tanks, don't they? I mean, not tanks, but like incineration chamber.
I think I would
things.
prefer sonic over incineration.
But yeah, console.
It's transporters.
ESD
It just
console
transports it right out of you.
1, and
We actually have the console base by itself.
oh, yes, we do.
All right, you said ESD chair.
The bench, the single bench.
Oh, bench.
I mean, you'll have to do something to it, like stick a bowl in it or pot, or you'll have to do something to it, but I think you could use it as a base for a futuristic looking toilet. The one without the back.
And do we want the sittable or unsittable version?
Oh, you got to make it sittable just for humor.
Yeah, actually, 8 is kind of power walking.
I put him at 18, and that actually does pretty well, I think, for what I was looking for.
So you could use, if you end up wanting to like actually create a toilet bowl, you could put one of the bowls submerged into the top of the seat to kind of create not necessarily a bowl, but like a rim. And then
The small potter from ESD. Well, what is it? ESD planter or something like that?
yeah, I'm looking at it, but the thing is that's got gravel in it.
Oh, you said it so that just the lip sticking up above. You probably have more wiggle room using a pot or the bowl.
I'm just looking at the empty ones to see.
Just so many puns here. Wiggle room.
So for the life of me, I'm thinking to myself if if you're
Yes,
in
well,
a
the bulk
cell
of the toilet
with
humor seems
the
to be coming from. Sorry. In a cell.
Unless there's something more round that could be used for the actual bowl of the toilet and just eliminate the seat, but then you wouldn't be able to sit on it.
Primar says he loves how we spent 5 minutes talking about a toilet. Well, yeah, that's pretty much the life of a Foundry author, right?
yeah.
A lot of times the things you spend the most time on are very, very little things.
So
Close.
you could actually use one of the pots.
That's what I'm trying
Not
right
the-
now.
I was looking at my screen and not yours.
One day we'll have access to the Foundry IKEA.
What are you talking about? We're building it ourselves. That's practically IKEA. Some assembly required.
And Lord knows, sometimes we have parts left over. What was I going to do with this again?
There we go.
Brilliant.
It does kind of look like a toilet.
Yep.
Well,
I've been
on that particular brown note, we will have to end for the evening. Reached our generally accepted time limit. So,
No, that'll give us some time to start thinking about this in earnest.
and if people want to suggest titles for this mission, we'll post our usual threads in the forums and on Starbase UGC. You can give us your ideas there. So we'll be needing a title eventually.
Oh, I think we did figure out what the mission's about. We've got a couple of details, but I think there's still a lot of things we got to flesh out.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun. We'll be getting back to this mission before too long.
All right. If everyone wants to reach us, we can be emailed at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also on Twitter at foundryroundtab. Drogon here can be reached at Drogon1701. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman, and I can be reached at Greendragoon. Cast?
Well, I can generally be reached at the Starbase UGC Twitter.
Okay. That's at Starbase UGC.
Correct.
And Kendra?
At AlenisKendra.
All right. I think this is the part where we all say goodnight.
Yes.
Good night.
I'll say good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, and then we can watch Dragoon's nifty credits.